Ronit, Lior, Itamar, Shai, thank you all for being here today. Why don't we start with a very, very quick round of introductions? Tell us who you are, what you do, and in one sentence, what excites you the most about energy investments. Just pick one thing that excites you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm Ronit Eshel. I'm a senior director at the Israel Innovation Authority, and I am heading climate technologies in the Innovation Authority. What really excites me about energy is I'm currently also doing my master's in materials engineering, and I'm working on thermoelectric materials, so that really excites me on energy.
Hi, I'm Lior Handelsman. I'm a general partner at Grow Ventures. We're an early stage seed stage fund, investing also in climate. I've been doing climate tech for the last 19 years, 15 of them in SolarEdge as one of the founders and a senior executive there, and in the last 4 years at Grove. And what excites me about climate tech, I think that it's one of the few places where, in my view, there's a huge real opportunity that can also change the world. This is why we like it.
Hi, I'm Itamar Wiezman. I'm a partner and head of climate tech at Firstime Ventures. We're a climate tech fund out of Tel Aviv. What excites me most, I think it's David Attenborough who said we're the first generation to really feel the impact of the climate crisis, but the last generation to have a meaningful impact on it. The energy transition is just a part of a bigger story, and I feel that the sense of urgency, we really need to feel it, right? And I'm really excited every time that we have a Ignite the Spark event, or yesterday the Planet Tech event, to see so many really bright and hopeful people together. So thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shai Albaranes, VP of Innovation and Ventures at Orbia. For those of you who don't know Orbia, Orbia is a large industrial multinational active in agriculture, polymer production, fiber optics, energy materials, and water infrastructure. As part of my responsibility, I also run Orbia Ventures. It's a global corporate venture fund that invest primarily in climate technologies. What excites me, yesterday we approved a follow-on investment in a nuclear fusion company, a US company called Type 1 Energy. This is something that if it happens, it will be fundamental to our energy situation.
Fantastic. So let's start with a general question, and again, we'll do a round. Let's talk about the state of climate and energy investments. So, after the high years of 21, 22, we've seen a slump in investments in 2023, but in the first quarter of 2024, we've seen a moderate uptick. Both in the general climate space and also in energy investments. And my question to the panel is, what is your take on energy investments globally in Israel? And please also refer to how you see the effects of October 7th on the Israeli landscape. So it's a lot to unpack, but let's maybe start just Shai.
Yeah, so we completed internal assessment of 2023 and looking in the last few years in energy investments and climate investments. So what I'm sharing today is not specifically on energy, it's climate more broadly. I think what we've seen in 2023 is actually back to the pre-2020, 2021 levels. So if you look at the last 10, 15 years trend, the outliers were actually 2021 and 2023 came back to let's call it the pre-bubble levels. So the good news that the hype is over. The bad news that being a founder is as difficult as it was before 2021. So in that sense, we're back to the pre-bubble levels. Good companies are raising money. but it takes longer, and people need to prepare for the longer journey. But if you look really zoom out, actually we're in a better place than what we thought in the beginning of 2023. Specifically on October 7th, and in Israel, we actually don't see a huge change following October 7th, but the big change actually started before. So we do see some multinationals that have made a few decisions, but this was prior to October 7th, with everything that happened in the country before. So we don't see huge change, other than the fact that startup companies are struggling not only with the regular thing that they need to struggle, but also with people that are drafted and families that are being affected, but less coming from the international investor community.
You know, the biggest climate tech investor in the world and in Israel are governments. And sometimes we feel like private investors as if we have a lot of sway and power that we can change reality, but the fact of the matter is that we need governments now more than ever. And there's a huge elephant in the room, which is called, you know, the Israeli government. The Israeli government... The Israeli government...
Not an elephant.
Sorry, it's not an elephant? I don't know what it is. It's a safari, it's a whatever. Okay, it's a meteor, okay, a meteor. It's not coming our way, it already hit us. And I feel like we need to be very frank. In the last 30 years, since Yitzhak Rabin's government in the 90s, that laid the foundation for the venture capital scene that we have right now in Israel. Israel is about to not only go back in time, but actually wipe out the assets that we've built in the last 30 years. I had the chance to speak to a lot of colleagues from all over the world, and I don't need to burst the bubble about how Israel is being perceived right now, but because I feel that people here are aware of what's going on. But if we do not change course, these meetings will happen less and less. More and more entrepreneurs are going to take their bags and leave to other places. Already companies are registering off of Israel, meaning less taxes to build our infrastructures, to train the next engineers, developers, scientists, chemists, everyone that we need here. Israel is dependent on 10, 20,000 professionals that are going to pack their bags very soon. I'm 32-year-old, I'm a third-generation Tel Avivian, and the people around me are thinking of relocating. Now, it's not really great for Israelis and Jews outside of Israel right now, but at least they can create these companies in an environment that respects innovation. This country right now, led by this government, is destroying the hard work of everyone who's sitting in the audience right now. So if you want to talk about how we change and improve and upgrade and move together for the next decade to build powerful climate tech companies, to create fantastic green jobs, to create great returns that are helping to save the planet, we need to first change the government. If we don't do that, we have no chance of doing anything else, because foreign investors are leaving and going to leave in droves. Companies are going to register outside of Israel. Entrepreneurs are not going to set up new companies here. And we're just going to see less and less talent coming here and joining us. And it's important to say this is not excuse me, if you should guys, I'm really glad that you're all very opinionated. Next time I suggest to get a seat at the panel. I'm using my words and times to express my opinions. If you don't like it, the door is there. But what I'm doing with my panel is to say something very clear as a climate tech investor. I have a bigger microphone. One last minute and I'm finishing up. Thank you. You can, by the way, listen to opinions you don't agree with. Ears are available also for opinions you don't agree with. It's very clear. If we do not change this government, we are going to lose everything we built in this climate tech ecosystem. Ignite the Spark is doing an amazing job. The entire ecosystem here is doing an amazing job. We do not have a problem with entrepreneurs and with volunteers and with investors. We have a problem with this government, and it's going to wipe out everything we've built. So I know you have an assessment of 2023 and 2024. Things are looking good. I feel different. And I feel that if we don't take charge, then we're going to risk everything we've built in this amazing startup nation. And it is amazing, and it could still be amazing, and we can head to beautiful, incredible places that are going to outshine everything we've built so far. Because the talent is here, the people are here, the Israelis are amazing people, and they deserve a better government. Thank you.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, Ronit, do you want to respond? Or do you want to...
I don't think there's a response. I think that we need to understand we're here, and I think that we're all doing everything that we can to make sure that the tech sector continues to thrive. Israel Innovation Authority, no matter what. And you know what? It's showing. It's showing because for the first time, there's been a record export from the Israeli tech sector of over 50% of Israeli export comes from the tech sector, and this is the first time that we've hit it. There's another great figure that we all need to realize and understand, is that the number of startups in Israel is growing, in climate specifically, is growing. And the Israel Innovation Authority, facing the circumstances that we've seen, has launched a fast track very quickly to bridge the gap of the circumstances and facing what we all realized. But the fast track has been able to help startups bridge more than 400 million shekels from the Israel Innovation Authority were put into startups to make sure that they bridge that gap of investors, to make sure that they continue their business in a great fashion. They all had to bring in matching, so that was 1.2 billion shekels put into startups in 4 months. So I think Israel Innovation Authority really brings in, whatever is needed to make sure that the tech sector wins. And you're all here. We're all here to make sure that happens. And we're taking every action that we can, all of us, to make sure that happens. So I think applause to you, all of you. So really, this is great. I think that the fact that we're meeting here comes to bring in a good testament, further than anything else, that Israeli tech delivers no matter what.
So I'll just say briefly that there are three almost separate trends here. One, there's the burst of the bubble, the end of the tech hype cycle, which is definitely pushing investments down. We are still in the climate tech hype cycle. There was a climate tech hype cycle. A lot of investors wanted to have climate tech investments in their portfolios, not necessarily climate investors. A lot of money went into climate VCs in Israel and globally. That hype cycle is starting to diminish, but we're still in that hype cycle to some extent. And on top of that, there is October 7th and what was before October 7th and the overall situation that we have here. I don't think that early stage companies are seeing these effects. There's still a lot of money in the Israeli ecosystem for investments in early stage startups. Later stage startups are suffering, and they're going to suffer more. So I also talk with a lot of international investors. Not all of them are out of Israel. You see large international investors that are now opening offices in Israel. You see still M&As by multinationals in Israel. But the overall trend is to shy away from Israel at later stages. And it's going to be very hard for late stage companies in the coming, I want to say 2 quarters, but I think it's going to be more. Obviously, a lot of things can change here that will change that. But for now, the way we look now, it's going to make life very hard for late stage companies. And this is why we see companies that are flipping and becoming non-Israeli to help them with the raise of funding from foreign investors for later stage mainly.
That's very interesting because I think the popular conception is that the early stage, I'm talking about the general ecosystem, and that is that early stage has a bit of more of a problem than later stage. That's a very interesting insight.
So there's a lot of money in Israel for early stage, a lot of money. VCs are sitting on a lot of dry powder, right? So there's a lot of money that was raised during the tech bubble. It is hard to get your first investment in climate and energy because it's a long journey, because of the long value of debt and so on. To that difficulty, the bad news is that once you get your early stage investment, now it's going to also be hard after you cross the value of debt because of the way Israel is looking now and some shyness of foreign investor, significant shyness of foreign investors of putting their money here now.
Okay. Well, we'll, I think, go to Shai now. And Shai, you are a corporate venture capital, which is a little bit different than a regular VC. So, and you invest across all the spectrum of early stage and later stage as well. Can you maybe kind of shed some light on how you invest, what kind of decisions and considerations you're kind of weighing as you invest as a corporate venture VC?
Yeah. Maybe first some data. If we look at, and I'm talking global, not Israel, global climate investments in the last 4 years, so 2020 until 2023, corporate VCs participated in 1 of 5 deals globally, and within energy, we're talking over 30%. So more than 30%, 31% of all deals globally had at least one CVC participating, and there are many reasons why, but maybe it's not for today. If you are about to pitch or meet with a CVC, I think it's very important to understand what type of a CVC is it, because there are very, very different flavors to a CVC. I'll take 2 extreme examples. There is on the one end, there's the Intel Capital type of a model where they do complete independent decision. They don't need any corporate support. They do their own decisions. And on the other hand, there are the corporate VCs that make investment only if there is a real commercial opportunity to the business, only if there is a buy-in, only if there is some, president approval and all kind of other commercial ties, okay? We, as a CVC, are somewhere in the middle, but more towards the independent, okay? So we are financial in the sense that we will never make an investment that we would not have done if we were a pure VC, so it has to be a good investment. But we're also strategic in the sense that we can bring much more than money to the deal. So we have a global footprint, we know how to scale technologies, there are certain experience that we have in-house in energy materials and polymer and hydrogen. So we bring that to the diligence process, but also to the post-investment support that we provide to our portfolio companies.
Thank you. Ronit, let's talk about your work. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about your team specifically and what do you do and how you support energy-related innovation?
Yes, so in the Israel Innovation Authority, we've got the different divisions working on tracks that are helping or investing in companies throughout the life cycle, from the initial inception of ideas, incubating startups, working on the specific company's growth, and up until R&D to production tracks that we have. So it's very diverse throughout the whole life cycle of the Innovation Authority. But we mainly do 3 things. Outside of investment, pure investments, which we have across the board, we do 2 other things. One is to make sure that we understand and that we engage the ecosystems in the next wave of technologies to see that we can, flourish whatever springs there are in the ecosystem to bring in the next deep tech, high risk technologies to Israel and help them flourish in this ecosystem. And the third thing we do is we also work with the ecosystem specifically to work on opportunities and barriers and how do we remove them. So I just had a round table 2 weeks ago with a team of experts from the energy sector specifically. And we talked a lot about the opportunities and the barriers that need to be removed in this sector. So hopefully within a couple of months we're going to roll out a program specifically for the energy sector that works on those opportunities and make sure that we have the clear path to help companies thrive in this sector.
Thank you, Ronit. Lior, let's come back to you. Grove is known to be an investor in advanced, tech-heavy startups. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how you view energy investments and how do you differ that from, how do you see this as different as opposed to the kind of, let's say, the regular enterprise market?
Sure. So energy startups are different in, I would say, 3 or 4 aspects. One, it's very hard to succeed as an energy startup without a clear technological moat. You can find a lot of places and scenarios where you need to have tech, but you can still win the market based on execution or a business model. In energy startups, that's harder. So we always try to look for a clear technological moat. The second, for energy startups and climate startups also, is that you have to have a funding plan for your whole route. Let's take the opposite of energy. Let's take a SaaS application startup. You can move from round to round. You're going to get money from venture capital, and once you have clear metrics in your business, you can move from round to round. It's much harder to do that as an energy startup. So I always ask founders when I meet them, what's your funding plan? And in your funding plan, you need to take into account all the various tools that a lot of startups don't need to think about. CVCs are critical for energy startup. There is a stage where you're in the valley of debt, and CVCs, especially non-financial ones, are very critical. At that point, grants and the ability to do some type of collaboration either with corporates. So you have to have a funding plan for your whole route, and that's the second difference. The third, which is very important for me, very hard to succeed as an energy startup without knowing exactly how many millions of dollars you need until you have an MVP. Usually it's a big number, but if it's too big, then it's very hard to invest in that company at an early stage. Because in 2021 confused a lot of companies, right? So in 2021 you could point to these companies that got a round of 20, 30, 40 million dollars to get them across the valley of debt without a clear business proof point. I think this period is gone, at least for now. And this means that when you raise your first fundraising, you need to know how many $1 million do you need in order to start some kind of sales, and how are you going to get them.
So the best advice for startups is to get a time machine to 2021. So thank you, Lior. Itamar, what do you see, are you looking for in energy tech and in climate tech investments?
I think right now, storage. We're seeing a lot of fantastic companies. Again, coming back to my earlier point about the role of government, we're seeing how the Biden administration, with its IRA is really shifting investments in energy. And we're seeing, one of the companies that we're now about to invest in is very reliant on grants based out of the U.S. administration, out of the Department of Energy. And we're seeing how that impacts our energy investment and strategy. So, Leo said how difficult it is for early stage energy startups, we're seeing the important role of the Israeli Innovation Authority in early stage investment, in taking the risk and helping with non-dilutive finance to really support, build the IP, build the technology, and from there raise a very significant ticket to reach a first of a kind, even if it's hard, budgeting the amount that's needed to get there. But the risk that is needed to take at the beginning is on the government. And that's why we're seeing, our role in storage. We're seeing a lot of companies that are now able to raise capital or finance from the US administration and from the European Union. And then basically we can deploy funds at a Series A. And from there, obviously, we're seeing different types of credit products are available for these companies to launch large-scale operations. But I think storage is something we're really interested in. We've invested in the past in a company in maintenance, and I can say it's much more difficult than we thought. We're seeing that the market adaptation takes a long time. Big energy corporations, this is probably saying the obvious, take a long time for procurement. Working with these corporations is really, really challenging. I think the Israeli climate tech scene is much more used to ag tech because there's a long legacy and a know-how how to work with farmers all over the world, and we've seen a lot of successes there. And in the energy market, it's just incredibly challenging. And also the regulatory market is changing so much, and it looks different from every in every territory. So again, going back to governments, I think in energy tech, we really need strong governments to deploy massive capital so that venture capital could come in and help push these companies forward. And for us, it's storage. We're seeing obviously a lot of interesting companies that are in sectors like fusion. We talked about fusion. These are technologies that are always 20 years away, right? For like 50 years, it's 20 years away. I wish that venture capital could invest in these companies. I don't see how it makes sense on equity side and bringing back returns to investors. I feel again that in this space, in the moonshot sort of technology space for energy, we need governments to take the risk because most of the technologies that are available today are available because governments took massive risks. The iPhone is built on 300 different inventions that were developed in DARPA and in the US in the space program. You should read Professor Mariana Mazzucato's book, Mission Economy, how 600-700 inventions that are used today in climate tech, energy tech, infrastructure tech was basically built because of investments of trillions of dollars in the space program in the US. So the entire Silicon Valley is based on American government deploying massive finance. So I feel the same thing is needed for energy. And I hope that the Israeli Innovation Authority is doing a great job under probably the worst circumstances ever. And really kudos for that. And you're doing beautiful work. And it's really important to say, in spite of what I was saying about government, government is not a big monolith. But again, in energy tech, we need governments, and we need to pick and choose the sectors that we invest in according to the role that governments take in terms of de-risking the technology.
Wonderful. That actually, and also with the interest of time, we'll shift gear a little bit to talk a little bit about the trend landscape in the future. So you'll forgive me if I'll do a little bit of a mishmash of some of the questions. So we're starting the second half of 2024, and my question to the panel is, what are you seeing? What do you expect is going to happen in 2020, second half 2024, and 2025, and if you can refer to in your answers to maybe 1, 2, or 3 types of technologies you are looking to support in the future. Shai, let's start with you. Haven't heard you in a while.
Yeah, so again, some global data. The energy sector out of the entire climate sector was the second largest after transportation. So it is relevant, it is big, and it will continue to be big, again, globally. Within the energy sector, we see nuclear, we see renewable development, we see storage and hydrogen being the big sectors. One thing that surprised me that I saw that in 2023, a sector within energy called renewable natural gas is picking momentum, starting from a small base, but picking momentum in terms of growth. I think for the energy sector, again, globally, I'm not talking about the difficulties in Israel, we'll see 2024 and at least the beginning of 2025 look very similar to what we've seen so far. Good companies can fundraise, it takes longer, it's more complicated. We'll talk later if we have time about the complexity of building energy startups in Israel, which has a lot of complexities. In terms of the thing that we are excited about, so we've been looking recently at sustainable fuels. We're looking at torqueized hydrogen, which is a different type of producing hydrogen from methane. And we're looking at all kind of energy materials. So lithium, cobalt, manganese, and the technologies to produce energy storage technologies.
So I'm going to say that shifting to real tech, let's talk a little bit about tech and not about funding, even though I'm an investor, I like to talk about tech. So a lot of the things that, and the trends that we see now, especially in energy, take a long time, but if we, the places where there's high urgency in solving problems, and I personally think that we're going to see a lot of investments in 2025, 2026 maybe. One, the global grid is broken. Let's look at the US, the combination of climate and the strain on the grid, the distributed grid. There's a lot of, I can talk for hours on this, are creating, we have a broken grid, an unreliable grid. There are 137 days with blackouts in major areas in California every year, right? It's not a third world, it's California. And this is what is affecting a lot of tech around the grid and at the edge of the grid. So tech around the grid, grid management, virtual power plants, all of that, and at the edge of the grid, mainly storage and energy efficiency. So there's a lot of need in energy storage, energy efficiency, and grid balancing technologies, and of course renewable energy and renewable energy management. That's one thing. The second thing is that gas and oil and coal even are not going to go away for at least 50 to 80 years. There is a huge opportunity in improving and greening to some extent the oil and gas and coal industry. Because they're very, very inefficient for a lot of reasons. And there is a lot of good companies and good technology to be made around these industries in making them less impactful on what's happening to our planet.
Can you give an example maybe?
Oil drilling, gas drilling is terrible and it can be improved. Cogeneration. Look at the gas turbine. 60% of the energy come out the backside as heat. Let's find what we can do with that heat. And there are many more examples, because for the coming 50, 60, 70, maybe even 80 years, we're not going to get rid of gas and oil as the backbone of our grid. Not oil, but gas and coal mainly. And we can make them much less impactful. And this is also a very, very interesting subject. And heat in general. Heat in general, a lot of waste heat, a lot of heat that we can recover. It's heat and it's air conditioning. More and more air conditioning. Europe is going to get air conditioned in the coming 20 years, much, much more than it is now. It affects our cars, it affects our home. There's huge amounts of innovation to be done there. This is the technologies of now. I can talk about the technologies later and eventually get to fusion and to even some other things, but let's talk about that later. And data centers. Data centers heat also, sorry.
Yes. Who wants to talk about the technologies of the future?
I can talk about that.
Go for it.
Okay, so I think we're at a pivotal time where climate used to be something that was regarded as the environmentalists, and now everyone, all of us, we understand that it's a challenge that we all need to face, and we all need to bring in new technologies and change a lot of the things that we know of today, and make it something that's, breaking all the paradigms of how we know things today, but still continue to have, the convenience and the modern life that we have today. But things need to be different. So looking into the future, I think that what we're looking for research that is multidisciplinary, that reacts between the different disciplines of biology and engineering, biomaterials. The whole point of storage and the way that we use batteries today. Maybe all those materials need to change, completely change, and maybe the use of solar panels using silicon today, not maybe, we know that there's great academic research already in place to bring a lot higher efficiency conversions. All of these need to change, so materials is definitely something that we're looking for in the future. I think that the multidisciplinarity of biological processes in biomanufacturing, in bioproducts, in biomaterials is going to be huge, and definitely a strength for Israel as well, because we have a lot of people coming out of biology from the universities that we can work together with engineers in other sectors to make something that's more impactful. And I agree completely. 70% of heat is wasted today. 70% of heat is wasted. Definitely there's going to be technologies coming into the future that will be able to reuse that heat as energy and work on that.
Itamar?
I couldn't agree more. There's also a lot of combination technologies trying to take heat conversion into storage. Again, talking about the role of governments and the broken grid in the U.S. Israel, we're very accustomed to the Israeli grid, which is actually very different than most grids all over the world. But again, I think we're going to see a lot of stress from citizens all over the world in the next 5-10 years because of energy demand, and we're going to see a lot of capital being deployed uncarefully and probably not in the most optimal way in terms of solving the grid crisis. Now, our next investment, we hope that we're going to announce it very soon. It's actually a really interesting move that we've been working on for the past few months, working on heat conversion into storage. But I think the brilliant minds here have already name-dropped everything.
Fantastic.
Let me just say one more thing. You mentioned, and I think it's really critical, in the Israel Innovation Authority, we just launched the startup fund, which completely changes our business model. Instead of working on projects or investing in projects, we have completely changed the model that we work on. We work on early stage. We right now have companies coming out to us for investments, and we come in to investment rounds as non-dilutive investor. And as at the very beginning, where there's high risk, we're going to be higher in percentage in the round itself, and then we try to bridge the way to the private sector to kick in. So we're doing ideation, pre-seed, seed A, all of that. We're coming in as non-dilutive investors. After A, we expect the private sector to kick in. So I think that model definitely sits well, I think, with what we're expecting governments to do. Do it while there's high risk at the early stage, and make sure that those technologies are deep tech and bringing in the future hope.
We're at time, but Itamar, you had a...
Yeah, just one thing. Lior mentioned the role of fossil fuels still in our economy for the next 50, 70, 80 years. I think we should be very careful of that. We have a very clear carbon budget that we can deploy, and that's why I think we'll see return to nuclear energy in a lot of countries, trying to reach massive energy generation without creating emissions. And I think the nuclear scare that was spread by the last 50 years of environmentalist activists all over the world is maybe going to minimize. So we're going to see, I think, a new generation of nuclear power coming back to help maybe avoid the reliance on fossil fuel.
Thank you very much.